you probably have at least one of these things here. Right now this is set to 1%, and let's crank it up to 100% to see what happens. Maxed out to 100%, and that's pretty bright. Okay. Now, wait until you see what happens when you actually try this baby out. I'm actually pretty happy to be able to say the correct pronunciation of this brand instead of Zhiyun, just to get that out of the way. It's Zhiyun. So there you go. Which, by the way, they sent me the slides for me here to test it out. I don't get paid to say anything here, and this video is not sponsored by Zhiyun. And by the way, this light here is nothing like I've ever seen before, because usually the lights, the tube lights that you guys have or you've seen around, they usually vary from 18 watts to 26 watts of power. And I'm not sure if you actually noticed that there are 6 fans in the back of this light. It's because it is a 100-watt tube light. If you're looking for a 100-watt light, especially a tube light that it is quiet, you know, this is not happening. So get used to the fans, because the fans are here to stay, because you're talking about a 100-watt light. So it's not really designed for the interview set, each tool for the right job. What makes me like this light a lot is because every time I'm actually outside filming a bride, you know, out of the venue, or the bride getting ready, this is a miniature of a little portable sun on a tube shape, because I've never seen anything like this before. And this is what this light is for. I actually have this light currently set to 1%, and this is what it does. I'm shooting with the Canon R3. This is the Zhiyun FIVERAY FR100C. Of course, it's a 100-watt light. It has a CIR96 and a TLCR97. It ranges from 2700 degrees Kelvin all the way to 6200 degrees Kelvin color temperature, and is dimmable from 0% to 1% increments all the way to 100%. And the actual hardware outside, the actual construction of the light, is actually very well made. It's actually very beefy. Don't expect this tube of being 100 watts to be anything light, because the heat sink in here is actually massive. The entire construction of the light is a very high durability plastic, and the actual gripping material here, when you actually hold the light, it stays here. It's not, there's no way this thing is gonna slip out of your hand. But don't think you can actually hold this light for, like, 10 minutes, because you probably will have to kind of exchange hands here and everything. But the size of this light, this is actually very small. It's actually smaller than the most Godox tube lights that I reviewed, and many other lights, the LC500R or something like that. This light is actually smaller than them all, and most of those lights, they actually range from 18 watts to 26 watts. This is actually 100 watts on an actual tube, which is pretty impressive. And here's the light actually off to give you an idea of the degree of diffusion it provides. It's actually pretty decently soft, and the back of the light is actually my favorite part of the light, design-wise or looks-wise, because it looks pretty badass, as you can tell here. This light also features a 1/4 20-inch thread, convenient for mounting anywhere you want, either on a C-stand or a boom or whatever you got. And another thing that's great, because they actually made the control panel here on the back of the light, because you don't want this thing to be in the front here as you dial on this thing, right? Especially at being 100 watts. And to charge this light, this is probably one of the first questions the guys gonna be asking. Can you use this light while you're charging? Or, you know, of course you can. But one thing that will be common sense, physics and chemistry, because this has a built-in lithium-ion battery. So the best thing to do is to make sure that you charge this light first at 100%, because otherwise you're going to be stressing the battery so much. Imagine you crank this up to 100% with the battery at 4%. This is going to be very stressful for the light. So again, charge to 100%. You can do whatever you want. And speaking of charging, there are 2 ways to charge this light. You see a USB-C port here, which I guess would be for firmware upgrades, and also for charging the light, and also the standard barrel plug type here, which comes with the included power supply to charge the light. This is the charger that comes with this light. This is actually a 24-volt, 120-watt power supply here, which is not the usual 20-watt little charger that you see. So everything should match what this light is capable of doing. Even though if you want to operate this light at full blast at a maximum power, the included power adapter, it does a good job actually keeping up with the light. But they also sell something called the Transmount 120-watt power adapter, which is a little wide thing. Apparently it has a fan on it or something. And it's actually designed also to actually use this light at full blast while you charge the light. And again, I recommend the battery to be firstly charged at 100% first, and then you actually do that. The weight of this light is approximately 1 kilogram, or roughly 2.1 pounds. And when you actually turn on the light here, it's kind of difficult to see because the light is actually black, and all the writings over here is actually black. They should actually have made this with the opposite color in white. Somehow the handle of this light, for being a square shape instead of a round, because of this very grippy material here, it doesn't make my hands actually tired. It's actually pretty comfortable to hold because all my fingers here are actually grabbing the whole back of the light, so I can actually hold this for a long time. The tip for you to actually hold this light for a long time, if you do this with anything, even without knotting in your arm, you're gonna get tired pretty soon, right? So hold the light like this here with the arm close to you. You'll be able to hold the light for a long time. You know, you be creative. You hold it like this or like that, whatever, you know, but don't hold it like this way. Every time I see my friends mounting these lights here this way, especially on a stand, you know, thanks to the little 1/4 thread here, it almost makes me cringe because, you know, physics, the way the law of physics work. As long as you put this light here vertical, because the gravity is actually pulling down, no problem. You can actually mount this thing on a stand, but be careful when you actually mount this on a boom with the light this way here, because if you try to hold the light from the very edge, it's very stressful. It hurts the tip of my finger because all the weight is going to be concentrated here, right? It's a lot of stress. So the thing to do is you can safely mount this on a C-stand or whatever angle that you want. All you have to do is to make sure if you move the light, mount it on a C-stand or whatever, when you land this stand on the ground, on the floor, don't bang the thing because you're definitely going to possibly break this. Even if this were made of metal, you would definitely going to manage easily to break the thread. This is how it is because the weight of the light and the stressful way that the light is going to stay this way. This way, no problem, but here, just be careful. And next, you probably want to know, when do these fans actually turn on? So right now I have the light set to 0% and then 1%. It's going to turn on at 11%. Right now I'm at 10%, and this is the fan. It's going to stay this way, and the RPM is going to actually go higher as you crank up the light. And again, fan noise is not a problem because it's silly to wish for a light of 100 watts that doesn't get super hot. That doesn't exist as of yet. So the main use for this light, again, is to be outdoors or with the light in the studio at a distance to shoot something that has nothing to do with critical audio. For example, music video or a bride and a wedding photography or videography, anything that does not require a recording like this here. This is what this light is for. Now you can actually use this light at 10%, but the 10% of this light is actually pretty decent, especially if you want to place the light closer or a hair light or something like that. You can definitely use this light in the studio in a quiet environment like this, involving speeches and all. Other than that, you're going to deal with the fans, which to me is not a problem because this is a 100 watt light and I intend to use all the power it gets. And this is not even the brightest. This is the brightest right here. That's crazy. Look what happens at the background there. I completely wash out the whole thing there. The whole thing becomes nearly white, as you can see. Now this light at full blast, the heat that comes out of this thing, I can actually feel it from here. Over here is actually almost like a mini halogen light. This thing is absolutely insane. I'm actually gonna even measure the temperature of this. It's 99 degrees, 100 degrees. Yeah, that's hot. Any wonder why there are 6 fans here? Now the one thing that I don't like about the super powerful 100% super brightest mode here is because you're going to be at the 4000 degrees Kelvin. That part I understand because you need the both warm CCTs and the cold CCTs to actually be able to achieve this type of brightness here, because you need every LED that you got in here, right? Every time you press the max button, again, it's going to jump to the standard 4000 degrees Kelvin at 100%. And one other thing to observe here, the battery gauge is almost like a preview or where you're going to be at battery wise. So again, when you press the max button, you're going to notice that the gauge is going to be dropping 1 or 2 bars, but every time you actually make the light less bright, it goes back to what it was before. So this works as a little preview and actually as a how much juice left you have with the battery here. This is actually the first light that Zhiyun makes, and I was actually very impressed with this light because this thing is extremely powerful and very small, portable, and convenient to take this on a wedding, when you're actually shooting a bride on a sunset or whatever, with the sun facing the back, beautifully lining her dress and her hair and all, and then you just blast this thing here on the maximum mode. That's gonna be very nice, especially during sunset, since it is a 4000 Kelvin maximum super bright light. it makes sense because you're gonna actually warm her up a little bit as far as colors. It's gonna look very pretty in photography. And don't forget, on max power, you can still switch to 5600 degrees Kelvin or 62 or all the way to 27. It's still a maximum. You can still change everything. And you can also cancel the max and do the same thing, adjust your color temperature here in any way you like. So Zhiyun chose me to be the first channel to actually put hands on this light and actually review. I received this light actually all the way back in May, and I'm reviewing today, which is June 10th, and the release of this light is June 15th, which I'm not allowed to do anything before that date. So what I received was the light on a package that doesn't say anything outside. It's just like a cardboard thing, and it also comes with the light itself, the power supply, a USB-C cable, and also this little pouch here, which, by the way, I found it a little bit too thin for a light of this weight. It's very easy to damage the light with this here. I'm not sure if this is actually the final thing they're going to be doing, but if it is, I wish they actually provided a case like this, even if they have to charge a couple bucks more. So this is the protection. When we actually put the light here, you know, it can actually drop like this, no problem, because it has a lot of padding and nothing will happen to the light. But with this other case here, I find it, you know, it's just a little bit of a cloth there, so I prefer that case. The 5-ray FR100C is sold as a standard kit for $199 US, which I believe it comes with the light itself, the pouch, the power supply, and also a USB-C type cable. And it's also sold as a combo for $249 US, which I believe they probably include the extra charger that, you know, I don't know, I'm not sure what it is. So once this light becomes official, I'm going to be placing the links on the description, which, by the way, this video is a lot of work to do. So if you guys want to use my affiliated links, I would really appreciate it. It just helps the channel and it doesn't cost you anything extra. So if you want to use my links, thank you very much in advance. It's overall a very impressive light, and I'm gonna use this light a lot. But if I were to recommend or say something to them to you know, keep in mind on the next model, first thing that I would do first of all is the text here in white on a black unit, and vice versa with the white light with the black text, or if the text was backlit somehow. Also, to make the RGB side of the light equally as strong as the CCT, in which you can also add the green magenta correction, which this light currently does not feature. And also this light does not feature an app, which, by the way, when I'm actually doing a commercial production there, I don't have time for apps. All my little tube lights, they all got app, but and I don't know about you, but I never use the app. I simply don't have time, or I don't even remember that this thing got an app. But just to make it clear, there are no apps of any kind. Everything here is manually done. And also, instead of making the 1/4 20-inch threads right here, I would actually design a Arca Swiss, which can actually be mounted right there, which you can actually do whatever you want. Put a C-stand, you can actually bang it on the floor or whatever. It's not going to break the light because the center of gravity is going to be right here. So making an Arca Swiss design here is going to be pretty cool instead of the thread right here. Another cool thing to do is to actually have grids. I don't know if it is a snap-on or something magnetic here. That will actually be cool as well. And this light is actually an RGB light. I was super excited to have something this bright in my hand. You know, I couldn't even wait to actually see how the HSI side of the light was going to work. So let's switch to the magenta, which is usually one of the strongest, brightest colors right here. About 275. And I'm actually aiming the light in the background there. As you can see, it almost makes no difference whatsoever. So the light is on. So for the RGB side of the light, the HSI was a little bit, you know, disappointed because I was expecting this to be ridiculously bright. So I can actually use the CCT as well as the RGB, you know, but this is what you get right here. So I have this light about this distance, and the ISO is at 640. The shutter is 1/80th, and the aperture is at 4. And I'm about 2.5 feet far away from my face here, away from my face. And I can actually look directly at the LED bulbs. Even though everything is dark here, it doesn't really hurt my eye. But don't try to do the CCT at max mode, because that thing is no joke. On that side of the light on CCT, this light is absolutely phenomenal. But the RGB let me down a little bit. I mean, it's bright enough for stuff like this here. But when you start to put lights and all, as you can see, the effect is almost like non-existent. And I was told by Zhiyun that this cannot be changed or upgradable by firmware. So this particular model is going to be this way here. This is what they told me. Another thing that I wish they did here is to actually make the CCT from 2700 all the way to the 100 degrees Kelvin in a way that doesn't alter the exposure, because at 4000 degrees this is actually the brightest because both CCT lights are on. But I've seen many other lights that, it doesn't matter what you change here on the color temperature, is going to be actually keeping the same brightness. So somehow the software is going to compensate or dim the right way. This light here, it does not do that. Which, by the way, this is a semi-stepless light. It's not that smooth. As you can see, there's a little bit of a jump here, but this doesn't bother me at all because I'm not going to be recording a whole transition this way here. I'm going to set the color temperature that I want, and there you go. But don't expect this light to be 100% stepless, because it's not. You see a little bit of jumps here and there. But on the middle here is more gradual, and especially if you actually change the percentage, the higher the percentage, the smoother that will be. This only happens more abruptly when we have the light at 1% or 2%, but over here, it's pretty smooth, but not entirely stepless. Now let's just see if this thing is going to memorize, because when you actually are on a break and you want to come back, I expect this light to be remembering the actual settings, so I don't have to actually dial anything or set up anything. Let's go to the CCT side now and see what happens. So 4500 degrees Kelvin, and set the light to 10%. Let's power the light off again. So the last thing the light saw me doing is what it was on the CCT mode. So let's power the light back on here. I expect it to be at that, no, it doesn't happen. So 2700 degrees Kelvin at 0%. So every time you have to correct here. So I'm not sure why it's doing this on the RGB also reset to 000. So every time you actually turn on the light, you have to reconfigure the whole thing. So you either better write it down on a piece of paper what the settings were, or you just, if you just had the light at 100% at 5600 degrees Kelvin, it's easy. But if you are somewhere there, like, 41 Kelvin and then 16%, you gotta either remember that. So just so you know, it kind of resets everything. And that's the end of my review. If you want to give me a like, I would really appreciate it, especially subscribe to this channel. And if you want to comment anything, I make sure I reply to everything there. So once again, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.